Why does a flamingo stand on one leg?
Scientists don't know for sure why flamingos stand on one leg at a time. Sometimes for several hours, but they have several theories. Some people believe that flamingos lift up one leg so they are less visible to their prey. Standing on one leg, they may resemble a tree to the aquatic creatures they are hunting. During cooler weather, bringing one leg up close to the body can help conserve heat. Some have suggested that standing first on one leg and then the other helps promote the circulation of blood down flamingos' long, skinny legs. Flamingos can even sleep while standing on one leg, and some scientists think there is a connection between their own leg position and the way their brains function during sleep. One half of their bodies and brains can sleep while the other half, including the leg they stand on, remains somewhat alert.
What are eyebrows and eyelashes for?
Eyebrows and eyelashes protect the eyes, which are fairly delicate. Protecting the eyes is important because people rely far more on sight to get information about their world than on any of their other senses. We don't have the keen sense of smell that a dog has, for instance, or the excellent hearing of a cat. Eyebrows keep sweat and dust and dirt from reaching our eyes. Eyelashes do the same, protecting the delicate surface of the eyeball.
Why do some people need to take naps?
Young kids need naps to keep them healthy and safe. Their bodies are growing and changing at a rapid rate, which requires a lot of energy. In addition, the world is filled with so many interesting things to discover and so many new skills to learn. And all that stimulation can make a child pretty tired. Whether big or little, people don't perform at their best mentally or physically when they are too tired. Often when you're tired it takes twice as much energy to perform a task that you could easily do if you were rested. Sometimes being too tired makes you less coordinated and clumsy. And you might think less clearly, which could lead you to hurt yourself. Taking a short rest allows your body to slow down for a while so that it can regain the energy it needs to continue performing at its best.
Why do houses usually have lawns around them?
Houses have lawns around them for several reasons. The stretches of green grass look pretty, and they are good. Safe places for children to play when they are outside. Also, lawns frequently mark the boundaries that separate one person's property from another. Long ago, only the rich could afford to have lawns. Other people had to use all of their land to raise crops so that they had enough to eat. So a lawn became a status symbol, a sign to others that its owner had enough wealth to waste a portion of his or her land on grass, which was merely pretty, not producing anything that could be eaten or sold. That way of thinking may still be at work today. The average American lawn could produce about $2,000 worth of fruits and vegetables if it were planted. But instead of using land as a way to save money, American homeowners do exactly the opposite. Spending several $100s and countless hours each year on maintaining their lawns. Many people value the beauty of a well-cared-for lawn, however. Admiring the effect of a homeowner's hard work. Dr. John Falk, who works for the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., has conducted studies to prove his own interesting theory about why people like lawns. He thinks that because most of our history as humans was spent on the grassy savannas, large grassy areas with few trees, of East Africa, our desire to live around lawns is biological, or passed on through our genes from our prehistoric beginnings. Falk thinks that people naturally prefer the familiarity and safety. Because the approach of predators can be seen, of flat, grassy land over any other kind of environment. And his experiments seem to prove the theory true. Falk showed people from all over the world pictures of different terrains: desert, rainforest, coniferous, evergreen, forest, deciduous, leaf shedding, forest, and savanna, and most chose the grassland as the place where they would like to live.
Do all people live in houses?
Nearly all people in the world live in some kind of shelter. But a great many of these shelters look very different from the kinds of buildings we think of as homes. House types differ around the world because climates, local building materials, and ways of life vary greatly. In Southeast Asia, for example, where many people live on the banks of large rivers that frequently overflow, houses are built on stilts. In South America's rainforests, tribes of indigenous, or native peoples build huts with thick domed roofs made of palm leaves that keep the heavy rains out. People that live near marshy rivers sometimes use the heavy reeds that grow there to build their houses. And people who live near large forests often have houses made of wood. People who live in hot countries sometimes build their homes from bricks that are sun-dried blocks of mud. In many of these places, modern building materials are available. But the region's traditional shelters are still made because local materials are far cheaper. Some people take their homes with them. Such people are known as nomads, and their portable homes are usually tents made of sturdy poles, ropes, and fabric. Nomads usually live off the land by raising livestock or hunting. They are constantly on the move, in search of food or grazing land for their animals. Their tents, which are easy to set up and take down, are carried along on their journeys. People who live in deserts, like the Bedouins of the Middle East, are frequently tent dwellers. but hunting bushmen in Africa's Kalahari Desert carry huts made of sticks and grass around with them for use as shelters at night. Most of the world's people don't have shelters with the features that we think are essential for comfort and safety in a home, like electricity and running water. A surprising 80% of the population live in what we would call substandard housing.
Why do I need to sleep?
During sleep, your body systems don't work as hard as when you're awake. Your skeletal muscles relax and need less oxygen, so your breathing and heartbeat can slow down. Other functions like digestion slow down, too. During one stage of sleep when you dream, your muscles are even temporarily paralyzed, as your body uses less energy to run itself. It can use more energy for other important things, like growth and repair. In fact, a body chemical known as growth hormone, which is responsible for how big you will become, is produced mostly during sleep. Scientists have found that children who do not get proper sleep over long periods of time do not grow nearly as much as they should. So even though you don't feel like going to bed sometimes, do it for your body's sake. It will thank you in the morning, when you awake rested, repaired and even a little bit bigger.
Do bats really suck blood?
There are more than 1,000 different kinds of bats. They live all over the world, except in the coldest regions. Most bats eat insects, lots of them helping to protect food crops and other plant life. Some bats also eat fruit, as well as the nectar of flowers. There is only one kind of bat that drinks blood. Called the vampire bat, it lives in South America, Central America, and Mexico. Vampire bats are pretty small, their bodies only about 3 inches, 8 centimeters, long. They have big pointed ears and sharp teeth, which they use to quietly bite their victims while they are sleeping. In the saliva of the vampire bat is a substance known as an anticoagulant, which keeps the blood from clotting. They often bite livestock farm animals like horses and cows, and they, like many types of bats, can spread rabies through their bites.
What makes a shadow?
Visible light spreads out in waves as it leaves its source. These waves travel in straight lines through the air until they hit an object. The object will absorb some of the waves and reflect some back into the air. Light waves will not be able to pass through most materials, unless they are clear, like glass. Behind any object that has stopped the light waves is a dark spot, or shadow, which is simply a space where no light is. There are no shadows in dark rooms because no light waves are traveling through them. And on overcast days you won't see shadows outside because the sun's rays are absorbed and scattered in all directions by the clouds in the sky. Not enough direct light waves make it to Earth to cause shadows.
Why is cloning so controversial?
The possibility of cloning human beings arouses curiosity and excitement in some people and deep suspicion and fear in others. Scientists and doctors have long intervened in the creation of new life, such as using various fertility treatments to help people have babies who otherwise couldn't. But these techniques require doctors to assist in the process that happens in nature, the merging of a sperm cell from a man's body with an egg from a woman's body. Cloning bypasses that process altogether, using one person's cells to create a new human being that will be identical to that person. That level of scientific involvement in the creation of human life makes many people uncomfortable. Supporters of cloning technology argue that there are numerous benefits to human cloning. Many scientists believe that cloning can lead to important breakthroughs for people with incurable diseases. This type of activity, called therapeutic cloning, has as its goal the creation of certain kinds of cells rather than the duplication of a complete person. In such experiments, a human embryo, the group of cells that, if implanted into a uterus, would grow into a baby, would be produced through cloning so that the embryo's stem cells, special cells that can develop into many different kinds of cells and tissue, can be extracted, destroying the embryo in the process. Stem cells can then be used to grow new tissue to replace a sick person's damaged organs or to cure diseases that otherwise would be fatal. Some scientists wish to pursue cloning technology to create babies for people who are unable to have children, and who wish to produce a child that shares their genetic makeup rather than adopting a baby. Many people have deeply felt concerns about cloning, particularly human cloning. They fear that this relatively new science is still too risky and unpredictable. Experiments with cloning a human might result in serious defects or health problems for the cloned subjects. Even Ian Wilmut, the scientist who led the team that produced the cloned sheep dolly, has strongly objected to experimenting with human cloning before further research is done. Many people object to cloning on religious grounds, arguing that life is sacred, and only God, not scientists and doctors, can create new life. Others worry that the ability to clone a person might be abused by some who would spend a great deal of money to create a genetically perfect child, selecting certain traits and discarding others. Many people are disturbed by the thought that some people might use cloning technology to replace a loved one who had died. Canadian.
What is pollution?
Pollution refers to excessive amounts of waste, much of which contains harmful poisons that are released into the environment: air, water, and soil. Pollution is usually caused by people, more specifically it is caused by the waste produced by the cars we drive, the factories that make the things we buy, the power plants that produce the gas and electricity we use, and even the farms that grow the food we eat. Pollution has been a problem ever since large numbers of people occupied a relatively small space. During the 1800s and 1900s, however, as the world became increasingly crowded and more factories were built, environmental pollution became a serious issue. Air pollution is caused primarily by the burning of fuel. Gas-powered transportation methods: airplanes, cars, boats, and trains are the biggest culprits. The amount of fuel required to heat and cool homes and other buildings also contributes huge amounts of air pollution. Air pollutants damage Earth's atmosphere and harm plants and animals, including humans. Water pollution comes from a variety of sources. Any factory that makes things: toys, tires, steel creates waste products as well. This waste, filled with toxic chemicals, is often released into bodies of water, including lakes, rivers, and oceans. Other harmful water pollutants include sewage, which is human and animal waste. Most sewage is somewhat filtered in septic tanks and treatment plants, but some raw sewage still gets released into water. The chemicals used to control pests and fertilize plants on farms also ends up in lakes and rivers when rainwater drains from the farmland to the bodies of water. Ships carrying massive quantities of oil have also been responsible for polluting the water. If those ships break apart, the oil spills into the water, killing birds and fish and damaging the shoreline. The world's oceans and rivers can break down some pollutants into forms that are either harmless or beneficial to aquatic life. But when pollution levels become too high, the plants and animals living in the water suffer. Land pollution comes primarily from garbage. Some types of garbage: paper, plastic, some metals, glass, and so on are recyclable, meaning they can be processed and reused. Some garbage is biodegradable, which means it will naturally break down into tiny particles that can be reused by the environment. Vast quantities of the garbage we produce, however, is not easily broken down or recycled. Garbage is usually dumped in landfills, and as some things slowly decay, a harmful gas called methane is released into the air. Another source of land pollution are the chemicals used on farms. Some of those chemicals are washed into bodies of water, and some are absorbed by the ground where they can harm various forms of plant and animal life.
What does alcohol do?
A short while after a person takes a drink of beer, wine, or liquor, the alcohol in that drink will be absorbed into the bloodstream and transported to the brain and the rest of the body. The rate at which that happens depends on the person's size. The concentration of alcohol in the drinks, and how much food is in his or her stomach. Alcohol interferes with the messages normally passed from nerve cells to the rest of the body. A drunk person can't hear, see, smell, taste, or feel as well as a sober person, and drunk people are less sensitive to pain. Alcohol is a depressant, which means it slows down brain function. That slowing gives people a relaxed feeling. But it also means that the senses are dulled and reaction time is slower. With alcohol in their blood, people are less coordinated and lose some control over their muscles. Many drunk people have trouble walking without staggering. A particularly dangerous effect of alcohol is the resulting lack of inhibitions or inner restrictions over behavior. While most people wouldn't drive into oncoming traffic while sober, it might seem like a fun thing to do when drunk. People are more likely to get into fights, drive dangerously, and generally put themselves into risky situations when they are drunk. And because alcohol is a depressant, it will only increase the feelings of sadness or loneliness that drive some people to drink in the first place. For people under the legal drinking age, 21 in the United States, alcohol can also cause problems with the police. Anyone under age 21 caught with alcohol or under the influence of alcohol can face legal penalties.
Why can I smell things better when I sniff hard?
The air that you breathe through your nose passes into your nasal cavity, making its way to your throat and lungs. Located on the top of your nasal cavity is your olfactory, or smell, center. There, scent particles from the air you breathe are caught in a thick batch of olfactory hairs that send nerve impulses via the olfactory nerve to your brain, which recognizes them as smells. When you breathe normally, the air that you take in is not usually directed toward your olfactory center. But when you sniff hard, you take in a lot more air, and it travels toward the top of your nasal cavity. You can detect smells more easily then. When you hold your nose to keep from smelling a bad scent, you breathe through your mouth, which keeps most of the incoming air from reaching in your olfactory hairs.
Why do babies and toddlers have to wear diapers?
The bodies of babies and little children go through a lot of growing and changing. The ability of little ones to do things like control the activity of their bladder and bowels increases as their muscles and nervous systems develop and mature. When a person's bladder is filled with urine, stretch sensors located in the bladder wall send a message to the brain, which sends back a message to empty it. Still, most people can delay this need to urinate by controlling the urethral sphincter. A muscle located at the opening of the bladder into the urethra, the tube through which urine exits the body. When a child is very young, however, he or she does not yet have this kind of muscle control. In addition, a small child's brain doesn't connect feelings of a full bladder with the urination that comes afterwards. In the bodies of babies and young children, urination happens automatically and often like a reflex, and a diaper is needed to keep them and their surroundings clean. Between the ages of 2 and 3, though, children become aware of their body signals and have greater muscle control. And they are able to be potty trained, or taught to use the toilet. Likewise, when a person's rectum is filled with feces, nerve endings there transmit a similar message to the brain, which calls for it to be emptied. Whether the individual has a bowel movement, though, depends on whether he or she consciously relaxes the ring of muscles called the anal sphincter, around the anus to allow the passage of feces. Before young children can do this, as with urination, they must learn to recognize the signals their bodies give them and have good muscle control.
How big is Earth?
Earth, which is almost round in shape, measures 24,901 miles. 39,842 kilometers, around at its widest part, the equator. The equator is the imaginary line that crosses outer space, begins about 600 miles. 960 kilometers, above Earth. The planet midway between the North and South poles. A measurement through Earth at the equator, in other words. The planet's diameter reveals that it is 7,926 miles, about 12,700 kilometers, across. Earth's weight, or mass, the amount of matter that makes it, is around 6 sextillion tons. That is 6 with 21 zeros after it. Because Earth cannot be put on an enormous scale to find its weight, scientists use the laws of gravity and mathematical equations to figure this out.
Why do people have to grow old?
Growing old is part of being a living thing. Every plant and animal must go through a cycle of life that involves a beginning, a middle, and an end. Actually, as soon as we are born, we begin aging or growing older. But when we talk of growing old, we think of the physical changes that occur when bodies cannot grow and repair themselves as they once did. At about age 30, the signs of aging start to appear. Though for most people the physical changes aren't really obvious until many years later. As people age, skin may begin to sag and wrinkle, and hair may turn thin or gray. Over time, muscles become less strong and flexible, and bones may become more brittle and breakable. Blood may not flow through the body as well as it once did, which slows the activity of the brain and the senses. the immune system becomes weaker and does not fight off sickness as well as before. People experience these changes at different ages. But all will grow old as they near the end of their life cycle. It may seem sad that a person has grown old and cannot do all the things they once did. But try to look at it this way: when people grow old, that means they have been lucky enough to avoid things like accidents and diseases that could have cut their lives short. And better yet, regardless of the physical changes of old age, many people remain healthy and lead full and happy lives.
How do vines climb?
Some plants, referred to as vines, need support to grow to their full height. Vines climb in different ways. Some have soft, twisting stems, or tendrils, that they use to climb up other, stronger plants or supports. In such vines, once they touch supports, hormones make their stems grow more quickly on one side than the other, producing clinging spirals. Other climbing plants have special growths, like tiny aerial roots or pad-like suckers on their stems, that help them cling to walls and trees. Still others use hook-tipped leaves or sharp thorny spines like climbing roses to hold onto upright surfaces. Vines occur in many different groups of plants. They can be deciduous, losing their leaves in winter, or evergreen, keeping their leaves year-round, and they can live one season, annuals, or many, perennials. Some vines commonly found in gardens include grapes, zucchinis, and bougainvillea.
What is the sun?
The sun is a star, just like the twinkling heavenly bodies we see at night, far off in the dark sky. But the sun looks different to us because our planet is quite close to it. Just 93 million miles, 150 million kilometers away. The sun, a sphere or ball made of several layers of gases, gives off tremendous heat and light. It takes about 8 minutes for the sun's rays to cross space and reach Earth. It is believed that the sun's vast and continuous production of energy is due to nuclear reactions among the atomic particles of hydrogen, one of its gases. The sun is the center of our solar system, and its gravitational attraction keeps Earth and its neighboring planets in their orbits. The sun's energy is responsible for Earth's weather. Solar heating causes air to move, wind, and also causes rain by contributing to evaporation, a key step in our planet's water cycle. Without solar heat and light, plants could not grow and animal life could not survive on Earth.
What is a volcano?
A volcano is a natural opening in Earth's crust through which hot molten, or melted, rock, known as lava, as well as gases, steam, and ash, What remains after solid material is completely burned, escapes, often in a big, noisy eruption or explosion. These eruptions are thought to act like safety valves, relieving the enormous heat and pressure that exist deep in Earth's interior. A volcano is usually a cone-shaped mountain, its sides built up from solidified lava and ash, that has a hole or crater in its center through which it vents. There are several different kinds or stages of eruptions, many causing no damage to the places or people located near the volcano. But a few eruptions are huge and destructive. During these, lava can pour out and run down the volcano into surrounding areas, and enormous suffocating clouds of steam, ash, hot gases, and shooting rock can travel downhill at great speeds, covering many miles. When Washington's Mount St. Helens exploded in 1980, for instance, such volcanic clouds killed millions of trees. One of the most famous and destructive volcanic eruptions occurred in AD 79, when Mount Vesuvius in what is now Italy erupted, destroying the important Roman city of Pompeii. The Great Cloud of cinder and ash that covered the city preserved it remarkably. And much has been learned about ancient Roman times by studying these amazing ruins. Mt. Vesuvius is still an active volcano, which means that volcanic activity still occurs there and eruptions happen from time to time. A volcano may also be described as dormant, which means that no activity has occurred for a long while, but conditions still exist for an eruption to take place in the future. An extinct volcano is one that will never erupt again. Many volcanoes occur near the area where two ridges or plates of Earth's crust meet. Circling the Pacific Ocean where crust plates meet is a group of volcanoes known as the Ring of Fire. Plate movement in such regions may allow liquid rock, called magma, that is located in chambers in Earth's interior to rise, resulting in volcanic activity. Such conditions often result in earthquakes as well. Volcanic activity can take place under the ocean as well as on land. And when this happens, the formation of islands sometimes results. The Hawaiian Islands were created by just such volcanic activity some 40 million years ago. Even today, two of the world's most active volcanoes, Mauna Loa and Kilauea, are located on the island of Hawaii. Visitors to Hawaii's volcanoes National Park can travel to the slopes that surround the great volcanoes.
Why do birds sing?
Just as people talk to each other to accomplish a number of different things, so do birds sing for a variety of reasons. Perhaps the primary reason birds sing, and squawk, call, or chirp, is to attract or communicate with a possible mate. Once a mate has been chosen, the male bird sings to announce his choice and warn other males away from his mate. If approached by a hostile male, a bird might make threatening noises to scare his opponent away without having to fight. Birds also call to other birds to alert them to a good food source, or warn them that a predator is coming. Baby birds sing to let their parents know they are hungry. And sometimes birds sing for no apparent reason, just because they can. There is an actual scientific category of birds called songbirds. It includes several thousand species, nearly half of all bird types, and covers larks, swallows, and most birds that people keep as pets. Not all songbirds have pretty voices, like the harsh-voiced crow, for example, and some sing very rarely. On the other hand, some birds that are not classified as songbirds have beautiful songs. A bird is classified as a songbird because it has special voice-producing organs. Not necessarily because it produces the most lovely song.
What are the cloudy streaks that airplanes sometimes make in the sky?
When an aircraft flies very high in the sky where the air is cold, the water vapor from the hot exhaust of its engines condenses, leaving a trail of clouds behind, called contrails. These streaks are not the same as skywriting, when pilots use airplanes to write messages in the air. For skywriting, a special machine on a plane creates and blows out white smoke to form letters. A pilot can only skywrite on clear, non-windy days.
How is medicine made from plants?
Beginning in ancient times, people discovered through trial and error that certain plants could treat diseases, heal wounds, or stop pain. This valuable information was passed down from generation to generation. Today, companies that make drugs either raise these special plants and extract their healing substances to put into medicines, or study the plants and make chemical substitutes in laboratories. Currently, at least 25% of all the drugs that doctors prescribe still use extracts that come directly from plants. A substance called digitalin that is found in the leaves of the flowering foxglove plant, for instance, continues to help people with heart problems. And the dried sap of the seed pod of the opium poppy plant is still used as a powerful painkiller. New plants with healing properties continue to be discovered in unexplored places like the rainforests. But sadly, large portions of these habitats have been and continue to be destroyed.
Do cats really have 9 lives?
Do animal has more than a single life? But cats do seem to survive dangerous situations that would likely hurt or kill other animals. Most remarkable cat survival stories involve the animals falling from high places. Cats love to perch on top shelves or at window sills to get a good view of their surroundings. Their narrow, flexible bodies and great sense of balance allow them to climb into some pretty unusual places. They rarely fall from their high perches, but when they do, they usually end up with little or no damage. One reason for this is that cats have the ability to twist and turn themselves around in midair, landing on all 4 feet. Also, their flexible muscles and skeletons help their bodies absorb the impact of falls without getting hurt. Some cats have survived long falls from the windows of high-rise buildings without a scratch. Their natural characteristics seem to give them more lucky chances than other animals, hence the saying that cats have 9 lives.
Which country has the most people?
With 1.25 billion citizens. The People's Republic of China is the most populous country in the world. India ranks second, with a population of just over 1 billion.
Why do some wounds have to be stitched up?
Usually wounds that are deep or that have edges that don't naturally stay together need to be stitched up by a doctor. Blood carries dirt and germs out of most wounds, but deep wounds don't bleed much. For that reason, it is very important that deep wounds be cleaned well and closed up, preventing an infection from developing in deep body tissues, where it can cause real problems. Wounds with jagged edges that gap are also stitched up, to keep germs out and to prevent extra scarring. Wounds on the face are often given special attention, too, because scars there are so noticeable and can affect a person's appearance.
How many different kinds of animals are there?
Experts estimate that over 1 million different kinds of animals have been identified in the world. There may be millions more, particularly insect species, that have not yet been identified or discovered by scientists. Hundreds of years ago, scientists began dividing the animal kingdom into categories based on certain characteristics like body type, ways of reproducing, and what the animals can do: fly, swim, walk on 2 legs, and so on. The animal kingdom, and every other kingdom as well, is divided and subdivided into numerous other categories. If animal classification categories were viewed as an upside-down pyramid, kingdom, the largest and broadest classification, would be at the top. The animal kingdom is divided into several different parts, called phyla. The singular form of that word is phylum. Each phylum is further divided into classes. The other levels of division are order, family, genus, and species, with species being the tip of that upside-down pyramid, or the most specific way to categorize. When scientists give the official name for a type of animal, they use the genus and species names. Human beings are part of the genus Homo and the species Sapiens. Therefore, our scientific name is Homo sapiens.
What is ozone?
Ozone is a sharp-smelling gas that is a form of oxygen. There is a layer of ozone in the upper atmosphere, about 15 miles, 25 kilometers, above Earth. That layer helps protect us from the harmful ultraviolet rays of the sun. Without the ozone layer, too many of those rays would get through, making it difficult for plants and animals to live. During the 1970s, scientists became aware that certain chemicals, called chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs, were making the ozone layer thin and even causing some holes. CFCs were used in aerosol cans, air conditioners, and refrigerators. By the mid-1990s, the United States and many other countries had banned the use of CFCs. Ozone also exists in the lower atmosphere. But while the ozone in the upper atmosphere is beneficial, that in the lower atmosphere causes air pollution. When sunlight interacts with the fumes from cars and trucks, ozone is the main ingredient of the smog that is produced. In large amounts, ozone can cause headaches, itchy eyes, and lung problems in people. It can also harm other animals and plants. And it damages rubber tires and the outside surfaces of buildings.
What can we do to protect ourselves if a tornado comes?
Only between 700 and 800 tornadoes occur in the United States each year. And of those, only between 1 and 2% cause deaths. Communities watch for tornadoes when weather conditions are right and issue warnings to alert people if a tornado has been spotted in the area. In addition to warnings being broadcast on the radio and television, many communities have tornado sirens that can be heard for many miles, signaling that a tornado has been spotted and people should take cover. The best place to be during a tornado is under the ground, in a storm cellar or basement of a building. Take a radio with you, so that you can keep track of the storm. A flashlight will help you to see if the electricity goes out. And a first aid kit can help treat any minor injuries that might occur. If you can't go underground, go to an inside room on the lowest floor of a building. Hallways are good places to go, as are bathrooms. The plumbing and pipes in them are strong and could resist violent winds. Get under a stairwell or sturdy piece of furniture, if you can, which will protect you from falling objects. Avoid being near windows. Many tornado injuries are caused by flying debris and sharp objects, like pieces of broken glass, are very dangerous. If you are outside, try to lay as low as possible on the ground in a ditch, valley, or under a strong bridge. Protect your head with your hands. Don't seek shelter in something that can be lifted into the air by a tornado, like a car or mobile home.
What were some of the biggest meat-eating dinosaurs?
For many years Tyrannosaurus rex, whose name means king of the tyrant lizards, reigned as the biggest and meanest of the carnivorous dinosaurs. At 40 feet, 12 meters, and with a head nearly 5 feet, 1.5 meters, long and teeth 6 inches, 15 centimeters, long, T. Rex was definitely not a dinosaur you'd want to meet face to face. But some dinosaur bones discovered in the early 1990s show that T. Rex was not the biggest carnivorous dinosaur ever to have terrorized the planet. Giganotosaurus, pronounced Giganotosaurus, was slightly longer at nearly 42 feet, 12.6 meters, long. It lived about 30 million years before T-Rex. Scientists believe there are other ferocious meat-eaters that were even larger than the Giganotosaurus.
What is a cloud?
Our atmosphere is filled with floating water molecules, or water vapor. This moisture comes from Earth's bodies of water and damp soil. The heat of the sun evaporates or turns into vapor. That moisture and the water vapor rises. When this vapor cools, it condenses on microscopic dust and other floating particles and turns into droplets. Groups of these droplets, trillions of them, form clouds, which hang suspended in the air. These cloud droplets are so small it takes 1 million of them to form a single raindrop. When rain or snow falls to the ground from clouds, most of it eventually ends up back in oceans, lakes, and rivers, where it can again be evaporated by the heat of the sun, starting the process all over again.
How is it decided where a country will be?
Sometimes the size and shape of countries are dictated by the geography of the land around them. Mountain ranges, large bodies of water, deserts, and other features often provide natural boundaries that separate one country from another. The location of borders are often agreed upon by the countries that share them and recognized by other nations in the world. Border and territory disputes can be the source of conflict and even war between countries.
Could a balloon float into outer space?
The air that makes up Earth's atmosphere becomes thinner and lighter the higher up you go. So a helium-filled balloon would stop rising once the air surrounding it weighed the same as the helium gas inside it. Scientists think that 20 miles, 32 kilometers, above Earth is about as far as any balloon could travel.
How many kinds of fish are there?
There are around 25,000 different species of fish, with hundreds of new species being discovered every year. Of all the vertebrate groups including fish, mammals, reptiles, amphibians, and birds, fish are the most diverse. Most fish have scales, but some do not. Some are brilliantly colored, others blend in with the muddy sea bottom or the plants they live amongst. And certain fish can even change their colors to match their changing environment. There are even fish that can glow, a function called bioluminescence. In the pitch-black world of the deep sea, some fish have sleek, torpedo-shaped bodies with fins, some have spiny or puffed-up bodies. Others are flat, and still others have long, snake-like bodies. The largest class of fish by far are the bony fish, or osteichthyes. This class includes most of the fish that people catch for fun and for food. Like salmon, trout, tuna, sole, and perch. All bony fish have a skeleton that is at least partly made up of bone. And most have plate-like scales, a cover over their gills, and a swim bladder, which is a sac filled with gas that the fish can empty or release to control how closely they swim to the surface. The bony fish range in size from the goby, which is one of the world's smallest vertebrates at about 1/2 inch, 1 centimeter, in length, to the enormous whale sharks, which can get as long as 50 feet, 15 meters. Among the most fascinating classes of fish are the cartilaginous fish, or chondrichthyes, including sharks and rays. Chondrichthyes have skeletons made of cartilage instead of bone. Cartilage is an elastic tissue that is more flexible than bone but can still provide support. Pinch the tip of your nose, and you'll see what cartilage feels like. Sharks have scales, but not like the ones found on bony fish. Sharks' scales feel rough, like sandpaper, and they are made of a material similar to teeth. In fact, the teeth of sharks are actually modified scales. Sharks usually have powerful tails, a blunt snout, and powerful jaws with multiple rows of teeth. If a shark loses teeth while feeding or fighting, new teeth from the back rows will move to the front. Many people think of sharks as savage and dangerous. But in fact only a small number pose a threat to people. While some sharks can get extremely large, most species are smaller than 3 feet, 1 meter, in length. With the smallest shark, the dwarf dogfish, measuring only about 8 inches, 20 centimeters, long. Another type of chondrichthyes, the rays, have wide, flat bodies with the eyes on top and the mouth and gills underneath. They live at the bottom of the ocean, moving slowly through the water by gracefully flapping their wing-like fins. While many rays are harmless to humans, some, such as stingrays, have narrow tails with sharp, poisonous spines. If the stingray feels threatened, it can whip its spiny tail at its enemies, causing extremely painful and sometimes severe wounds. Rays range in size from a few inches to more than 20 feet, 6 meters, in width. Another class of fish, known as the jawless fish, or agnatha, includes lamprey eels and hagfish. Many of these primitive species are parasites, meaning they live off other organisms. Lampreys in particular have caused major problems for commercial fisheries, destroying large numbers of trout and other fish in the Great Lakes and other regions of the United States. They have long, eel-like bodies and round, jawless mouths. They attach onto their prey by suction, biting into a fish's flesh with their small, sharp teeth. Their skeletal structure consists only of a cord made of cartilage, called a notochord, running the length of their bodies.
But how does the metal switch in a toaster bend?
It bends because it is made of two metals that are joined together, something called a bimetal switch. One metal, usually brass, expands quickly when heated, while the other expands much more slowly. This difference causes the switch to bend toward the low expansion metal. Bimetal switches are used in other appliances that switch electricity on and off to keep their temperatures even, like irons and refrigerators. The thermostat that regulates the temperature of your home by turning your furnace and air conditioner on and off also uses a bimetal switch.
Why do I have to do homework?
Sometimes there are not enough hours in the school day to get everything done or to learn all that needs to be learned about a subject. Then you have to use your time outside of school to finish the work. When you don't do homework, you are only hurting yourself by not learning or practicing what you need to know. Homework is not just something you do to make your teacher happy. Completing school assignments and doing school projects outside the classroom can teach you important skills. 2. Like how to manage your free time, work independently, or use resources in a library.
What is hell?
In many Christian religions, hell is the place of punishment where people go after death if they have not lived good lives and followed the rules of thought and behavior set forth by God in scriptures. Sacred writings, like the Bible, and in the teachings of churches and religious leaders. Hell is believed to be a horrible place because it is the opposite of heaven. Hell is a place where a person's spirit will forever be deprived of the presence of God. To never know the joy of God's presence, believers feel, is so painful that it is compared to burning in earthly fire forever, one of the most awful things that can be imagined. Just like with heaven, people have tried over the centuries, through paintings and writings, to create images of hell, a place of enormous suffering. And as heaven is thought to be located above, hell was given an opposite location down below. Satan, or Lucifer who, according to the Bible, was a favorite angel of God's until he disobeyed him, is the ruler of hell. In many Christian religions, Satan and his wicked angel followers, devils, are thought to be the cause of evil in the world, always tempting people to be bad. Many non-Christian religions also teach of a place like hell, where people who have led bad lives on earth must go after they die. Even the ancient Greeks and Romans, who lived before the development of Christianity, believed in an underworld, a place where people traveled to after death. Good and bad people lived in different places in this ancient underworld.
Why do hyenas laugh?
Hyenas aren't really laughing, but some of the noises they make to communicate sound like loud, crazy laughter. Hyenas are usually scavengers, living on carrion, which is the rotting remains of dead animals. They have even been known to rob human graves for food. Sometimes hyenas do hunt live animals, however, attacking in packs. Mostly nocturnal, which means that they rest during the day and are active at night. Hyenas have on occasion entered villages and attacked livestock and sleeping people. The unsavory diet of the hyena gives it a bad smell. It is also not an attractive animal, with scruffy fur and hind legs that are much shorter than its forelegs, giving it a skulking appearance. Still, hyenas perform a valuable service in Earth's food chain as scavengers, ridding the environment of dead animal remains.
What does the brain look like?
The pinkish-gray spongy tissue that makes up most of the brain's outer covering is folded over many times onto itself, forming numerous ridges. These folds allow the brain to have a larger surface area and more room for lots of nerve cells than it would have if it were smooth. The brain is one of the largest organs in the human body. From about age 6 onward, the brain weighs about 3 pounds, 1.4 kilograms. While that's only about 2% of an average person's body weight. The brain uses about 20% of the body's oxygen. And if it's deprived of that oxygen for longer than a few minutes, it can become seriously damaged.
How can an owl see at night?
Most owls are nocturnal hunters, meaning they are active at night rather than during the day. Their large eyes have special features that allow them to see well even on very dark nights. An owl's retina, the part of the eye that controls sensitivity to light, is equipped with a certain kind of cell that gives the owl excellent vision even when there is very little light. While many animals can move their eyes without moving their heads, owls' eyes are practically immovable. They make up for this limitation by having extremely flexible necks. Owls can turn their necks more than 180 degrees, meaning they can look directly behind them. There is a popular misconception that owls are blinded by bright light. In fact, their pupils can act just like people's pupils do, reducing to a very small size in bright light in order to protect the retina. Not only can owls see in bright daylight, but they actually have better vision in that kind of light than do people.
What is mimicry?
Mimicry is the ability some animals have to resemble another animal so closely that they can fool either their prey or their predators. For example, the beautiful and brightly colored monarch butterfly has a foul taste, and most birds will avoid eating it. The viceroy butterfly, with its similarly colored orange and black wings, looks so much like the monarch that most birds are fooled and will also avoid the viceroy. The American zone-tailed hawk has similar color and body shape to that of a certain kind of vulture. Vultures do not attack live animals, they eat only carrion, which is the flesh of animals that are already dead, so small animals on the ground are not afraid of them. The zone-tailed hawk flies in groups with these vultures, disguising itself among them, and then swoops down on unsuspecting rodents that didn't recognize the hawk in time to scurry away. The red milk snake, which is harmless, has color patterns similar to the deadly coral snake. A potential enemy could easily mistake the milk snake for the coral snake and, thinking it is venomous, leave it alone.
Are any other planets in our solar system like Earth?
Although scientists believe that all the planets in our solar system were formed at the same time, from the same giant cloud of gas and dust, each is very different from the others. The four planets nearest the Sun: Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars are known as terrestrial planets, because they are made of rock and metal. The next four planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, are called the gaseous planets. As they are made mostly of such gases as helium and hydrogen, their inner layers are liquids, and they may have rocky cores. Not much is known about Pluto, the farthest planet from the Sun, about 3.66 billion miles away. A small, solid planet, Pluto is thought by some to be made mainly of ice. Some scientists have suggested that Pluto may not be a planet at all. It may simply be a large piece in a band of rocky objects, called the Kuiper belt, that orbits the Sun. The planets of our solar system vary greatly in size, rotation, and other characteristics. The smallest planet, Pluto, has a diameter, the measurement through its widest part, of 1,430 miles, 2,288 kilometers, which makes it smaller than our own moon. Jupiter, on the other hand, has a diameter of 88,700 miles. 141,920 kilometers, which is about 11 times the size of Earth's diameter. If Jupiter were a hollow ball, it would take more than 1,000 Earths to fill it. Jupiter also has the fastest rotation, or spin, on its axis, completing a day and night in just 9 hours, 55 minutes. It takes Jupiter a much longer time than Earth to rotate around the Sun. However, a Jupiter year is 4,333 days. Mercury has one of the slowest axis rotations. It takes 59 Earth days for Mercury to make a complete turn on its axis. But Mercury rotates around the Sun much faster than Earth does. It takes only 88 days, a very short year compared to Earth's 365 days. Because Mercury rotates slowly on its own axis and quickly around the Sun, its days defined as the time from one sunrise to the next are as long as 176 Earth days. Saturn is perhaps the most interesting looking planet. Surrounded by 7 wide, bright rings made mostly of ice. Jupiter and Uranus also have rings, though they are harder to see than Saturn's. Although not closest to the Sun, Venus is the hottest planet because its thick atmosphere of mostly carbon dioxide traps in the heat of the sunlight that reaches the surface of the planet. The average temperature on the surface of Venus is 900 degrees Fahrenheit, 481 degrees Celsius. Mars is the planet most like Earth, with a thin atmosphere and a surface that has mountains and valleys, extinct volcanoes, and what looks like dried-up riverbeds. Scientists wonder if some form of life once existed there. They have been trying for years to figure out a way for humans to explore that planet. Only Earth has liquid water on its surface, which is necessary for life as we know it. Without water, plants could not grow, and without plants, oxygen, the gas essential for animal life, would not be released into the atmosphere.